In today's video, radical Bernie Sanders supporters are calling for the assassination of President Trump. Also, CNN just published a poll showing the huge support for President Trump, and the Democrat senator from Maryland is actually flying down to El Salvador.
Beheaded Donald Trump, are you calling for his death?
I am, yes. I believe it's time that the people straight cut his head off.
I believe that the minute that Donald Trump decided to start ignoring judicial orders, he gave up the right to be the rightful president of the United States. He's an enemy of the nation. And yes, I'd like to see him hung by his feet by a lamppost. You wouldn't necessarily call for violence, would you? Are you supporting violence?
I think there's the people in power. That's all they're going to listen to at this point. I feel like we've done the rallies. We've done all these things and they don't listen. And that was something that finally got people to listen.
Only way we're getting Donald Trump or J.D. Vance or his ilks out of power is having tens of millions in this people in the street. And we're going to have to have a few thousand people die at the hands of cops and soldiers before people get outraged enough to actually force the government to resign.
It's very clear. You know you have mental issues when you're calling for the assassination of the president of the United States. That's just the bottom line. And that is not coming from the right. That's coming from the left. And why is that? I keep saying it like every single day. It's the rhetoric from the leaders. They don't want to tone it down, right? They want to continue to describe President Trump as an individual who's destroying this country. And the only way to fight back is to get violent. And that's what we've seen from this other story where a son murdered his parents because he wants to assassinate the president of the United States. You just can't make this up.
In February, the bodies of Tatiana Kassup and Donald Mayer were found in their home in the village of Waukesha. Both had been shot. Their son, 17-year-old Nikita Kassup, was later arrested in Kansas. Now, a federal search warrant says Kassup wrote a manifesto calling for the assassination of President Donald Trump to start a revolution to, quote, save the white race. The warrant says Kassup talked about his plans with other people who encouraged him and helped him.
Every politician knows when he or she uses words like Hitler or Nazi to describe someone, there's a risk that someone will hear those words and decide to take matters into their own hands.
But as we already know, Democrats are cowards. They won't condemn the violence, just like they didn't condemn the violence as it pertains to Tesla. They're not going to call out their fringe left, and they refuse to separate themselves from violent criminals because they continue to defend Mr. Garcia, the MS-13 gang member, more than they defended the mother of Rachel Morin. I mean, just think about that for a second. Now, let's go to our next story because this confirms how unhinged the left really is. They believe that Trump voters have buyer's remorse. Well, unfortunately, CNN says otherwise with a new poll.
I mean, this is the big question, right? I hear all these stories, all these articles. All the Trump voters, they regret what they did back in 2024. I'm here to tell you, very few of them regret what they did back in 2024. What are we talking about? Trump voters looking back at 2024. We got a new poll out. The poll was conducted this month. What percentage would change their vote to a different candidate? We're talking just 2%, just 2%. That's not even a wide spot on the road. And then there's this additional 1% who say they would rather not vote. We're talking overall under 5% might or would have changed their vote, Donald Trump voters back in 2024. And then you ask, okay, the same question to Kamala Harris voters, and it turns out the numbers are rather similar. So if there was a repeat, if folks got to be able to redo their vote that they had back in 2024, would the result be any different? I doubt it would be. I doubt it would be, or it would still be extremely close. The bottom line is, for all this talk of Trump voters regretting their vote, in the numbers, it really just doesn't show up, John.
So now, what I find to be fascinating about this poll is that, one, it's being reported by CNN, and it's the same network that ran with the headlines claiming that Trump voters were having buyer's remorse. They wish they didn't vote for Trump, right? I mean, it's so interesting that they do that to themselves, but hey, I'm not complaining. And we already know this. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. Nobody has true buyer's remorse when it comes to President Trump because we know what the alternative was. Kamala Harris. That would have been Joe Biden times 10. So I'm thankful that President Trump was elected. Now, to cement the point even more, that there is no buyer's remorse. In fact, it's the opposite. There are more people registering as Republicans than Democrats at this point. Take a look at what he said.
And on this particular measure, which I think is so important, because what we saw in 2024 was Republicans getting a rare lead on party identification. It was a 1-point lead, according to Gallup. Look at where it was in an average of Gallup polls so far this year, plus 2 points for Republicans. If anything, the Republican brand has actually perhaps gotten a smidgen stronger, though these are within the margin of error. Very different from 2017 when Democrats held a 5-point advantage. And I'll finally note, this looks very much like the generic ballot trend, which in 2025 looks an awful bit like November of 2024, when Republicans, of course, won and held the House.
We will see if these trends continue, but they are very interesting at this moment. Harriet, and thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.
And the reason why you're not going to see buyer's remorse, especially at this point in time, is because the Trump administration is nothing but action right now. Every single day, they're doing something, not just talking, but actually doing. Which brings me to my next story. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, just announced that they are suing the state of Maine officially because they refuse to prevent men from playing in women's sports. Take a look.
Today, the Department of Justice is announcing a civil lawsuit against the Maine Department of Education. The state of Maine is discriminating against women by failing to protect women in women's sports. Pretty basic stuff. This is a violation of Title IX. The Department of Justice will not sit by when women are discriminated against in sports. This is about sports. This is also about these young women's personal safety. I've met many of these women throughout the past weeks and months, and what they have been through is horrific. We have exhausted every other remedy. We tried to get Maine to comply. We don't like standing up here and filing lawsuits. We want to get states to comply with us. That's what this is about. We have repeatedly notified Maine of its infractions and urged them to remedy the situation to protect women.
We want to make sure that if you open women's sports or intimate facilities to males, you expose yourself to federal civil rights investigations. Governor Mills will definitely get her wish.
Now, that last comment from Linda McMahon is the response to the original viral clip where President Trump obviously called out the governor during a governor's dinner at the White House. And the governor said back to President Trump, hey, I'll see you in court. So obviously we're now at that point. And the bottom line here is this is unnecessary. This is a hill not worth dying on. And we know where a majority of Americans stand on this issue. This is one of two of the surefire positions that Trump has that most people support. And what's even worse for this governor, the people in her own state don't support her fight on this.
One school district in the northern part of Maine up by the Canadian border has bucked the governor and backed the president when it comes to keeping biological boys out of girls' sports. Their superintendent was talking about it earlier this morning.
My school board and my community believes the president is spot on. We're a very rural community. We make decisions based on what our community is telling us. This wasn't a rush decision. This is something that our school board took 3 months, and we want to make sure our students are participating in sports the way that they're comfortable with.
So, guys, this is a common sense issue. We already know where this is going to lead up. Maine losing in a humiliating way. And that brings us to our next story, which is definitely full of humiliation. So that senator that I told you that was going to fly down to El Salvador to try to, I guess, negotiate the release of the deported MS-13 gang member. Yeah, he's at the airport today and he posted this clip.
I'm here at the airport. I'm about to board my flight for San Salvador. The goal of this mission is to let the Trump administration, to let the government of El Salvador know that we are going to keep fighting to bring Albrego Garcia home until he returns to his family. I hope to meet with representatives of the government. I hope to have the chance to actually see Kilmar and see what his condition is. But we are going to keep fighting because this is a miscarriage of justice. The Supreme Court has ruled 9-0, that he was illegally taken out of the country and put in a prison in El Salvador. And this is about due process. This is about rule of law. What bullies do is they begin by picking on the most vulnerable. But if we get rid of the rule of law and due process in the United States, it's a short road from there to tyranny.
Homeland Security put this up in response to that clip. While Senator Van Hollen and the mainstream media peddle a sob story about a brutal MS-13 gang member, Secretary Noem stands with the victims of illegal alien crime, like Maryland mom Rachel Morin. We hear far too much about the gang members and criminals' sob stories and not enough about their victims. And in case you need to see it, black and white, that the court even said that he's an MS-13 gang member, because I know on social media you're continuing to see people say that he's not. Here's his actual court documents highlighted in black and white. The court first reasoned that the respondent failed to meet his burden of demonstrating that his release from custody would not pose a danger to others, as the evidence shows that he is a verified member of MS-13. This is from April 29th of 2019 with an immigration judge. And here's the mother of Rachel Morin and what she had to say in response to the senator.
What are your thoughts on your senator going to bat for this illegal, but did he ever say anything to you and your family about your loss, to ever call you, ever take the time to be with you?
No, actually, I'm very angry. I'm actually outraged, but I'm too sad at the moment to show anger at the same time. He did not call our family. He did not give condolences. There was no action on the Democratic Party in any way, from Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Mayorkas, anyone here in Maryland, none of the senators did anything to help search for the murderer of my daughter.
See, that is the other side of this debate that Democrats don't want to focus on. They definitely don't want you to know about it, especially mainstream media. Okay, their entire narrative is built around the idea that President Trump is abducting innocent migrants, or undocumented people, as they would call them. But that is so far from the truth. Now, I have a clip to show you of them using that exact language. Here is the former governor of Maryland saying just that. Take a look.
I think the attorney generals play a really important role right now. I think it's only a matter of time before one of them figures out how to file state kidnapping charges against those that are abducting people who are in this country legally and sending them to this new concentration camp that Donald Trump laughs about having created in El Salvador. Attorney generals are going to play a critically important role in these days ahead fighting this fascist moment in American history.
And that's why when you saw the clip at the beginning of this video, that's why the base is so violent, because they have leaders who speak this way. And for all of the degrees and experience and intelligence that Democrats claim to possess, you think they would have connected the dots by now. That the way they continue to describe what's happening in America is inviting and inciting violence on their side of the aisle. But again, they're cowards and they won't condemn it. Now, here's Tom Homan's response to that statement.
He wasn't abducted. He's an MS-13 gang member, classified as a terrorist that was removed from this country. So we got rid of a dangerous person, an El Salvadoran national, was returned to the country of El Salvador, so he's home. We removed him from the United States. He's a public safety threat. That's exactly what should have happened. And I'm just disgusted that any congressional representative is going to run to El Salvador at his aid. When yesterday, I read in his state, an illegal alien charged with murder was released back into the community, and not the ICE detainer wasn't honored, and ICE had to go find him. In his state. In his state. The murder of Rachel Morin yesterday, listen to the testimony and listen to the mother on Handy last night. If you're not human, then your heart wasn't broken. It's just in his state. But rather than taking care of the constituents in his state, the victims of illegal crime in his state, he's going to run to El Salvador to protect an MS-13 terrorist. It's just disgusting.
It's absolutely disgusting. I talked about it at the beginning of this video. See, the left clearly has more compassion for criminals than a mother who just lost their daughter, who was murdered in cold blood by an illegal alien. It's just fascinating to see that over and over and over again. And it just seems to me that Democrats refuse to acknowledge the reality that's sitting there right in their face. Majority of America supports what President Trump is doing. Why choose to die on this hill? I just don't get it. And so they would rather play the sob story. Here is a clip of that.
To stop playing political games with the life of Kilmer.
Katty Kay, I'll let you take it from here. Yeah, I mean, look, I think the administration is hoping that all of these people who have been deported will be seen almost as non-human, right? The line we keep getting from the White House is that they are terribly violent criminals. They're not the kind of people you want in our society. How on earth could opponents of the White House say we should bring them back? Do you really want these people? And they're hoping that that is the message that plays around the country and that there'll be very little sympathy for people who have been put in chains and sent off to this El Salvadorian prison.
Now, from a common sense perspective, it's very sad for the children involved, but it's not President Trump's fault that Mr. Garcia broke the law by entering the country illegally. I feel like I have to repeat myself every single day on that main point right there. So regardless, he was going to be deported. It was only a matter of time. Now here's Scott Jennings really making the same point.
There's due process that exists in this country for everybody. And the fact that this man had received no due process, he was effectively disappeared to a foreign country, a country which he came from, which he was basically he got
it's asylum.
It's not
a foreign country. He lives there.
Excuse me, no, he does not live there.
He's a citizen of El Salvador.
Scott, excuse me, he got asylum in this country.
He's a citizen.
Scott,
does he have asylum?
Excuse me, let me finish.
No, he doesn't.
No, it's not that he. Okay. Sorry, it's not that he got asylum. He got a judge to say that he could not be.
Does he have
back.
a deportation order?
Excuse me, he could not be. Can you let me finish? He could not be rendered back to El Salvador because he was at risk of being harmed in El Salvador. That is what a federal judge. That is what a federal judge.
By who? Who was he at risk of?
Excuse me. That was what a federal judge said. He could not be deported.
Risk of being harmed by?
Who could he be at risk by? I don't know.
A rival gang.
No. Excuse me, Scott. Excuse me. Stop. Do you really believe that this guy's an MS-13 member? Because
I've got two heads of state telling me that they believe it.
Oh, okay. Your heads of state. Okay. Barack Obama said that.
I mean, that sums up the entire debate. Okay. I don't understand why they want to defend this. This is craziness, all right? It's just insanity. I showed you the receipts. It's black and white. The judge says in the record that he is an MS-13 gang member. And Scott Jennings just pointed out something that really makes sense. Well, why would a rival gang want to kill him? It must mean that he's in a gang. I don't know. I think it just makes too much sense. So let's get to the question of this video. What do you guys think about the political violence that's turning into real violence on the left? You saw the clip in the beginning. You heard about the boy who murdered his parents because he wants to assassinate President Trump. I mean, where do you think this is truly heading? And then what do you think we should do about it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, last night there was a bombshell announcement, which I love to hear. That is Letitia James is now caught in a mortgage fraud investigation. The Department of Justice is considering prosecuting her for these alleged crimes. If you missed out on that story and more from yesterday, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.